Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So, would you believe that sometimes what happens is people go looking for the hurt and the pain that they are used to, right? Some people go looking for the hurt and the pain that they are used to. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Now, I know it might sound like why would sound crazy? Why would someone go looking for uh, to create a similar situation where they experienced hurt or pain or whatever. But I will explain that to you because a lot of people go looking for that hurt and that pain. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Before we get into today's discussion, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe now. Don't forget to turn on your post notification. So hit the post notification bell. Also, please don't forget to share and hit the like button. Those two things help the channel grow, so I'll appreciate it if you do that. All right, so some people go looking for excuse me, some people go looking for the hurt and the pain that they are used to. And that is absolutely true. So what happens is we go looking for the hurt that we used to live, right? We sometimes go looking for the hurt that we used to live. And that can happen in a couple different ways. So let me explain that. Now, let's say you grew up in a home and you see it. A lot of times I see it from a lot of the life and career coaching stuff that I do. I see it a lot where, someone grew up in a home. Let's say a female, grows up in the home and the dad was abusive to the mom. And this is what's most common, right? The dad was abusive to the mom. And what happens is sometimes that behavior becomes normalized. So, an abusive behavior, whether it's physical or whether it is verbal, it becomes normalized. And when I say normalized, for the child growing up, that becomes, they see that as a normal form of what a relationship is supposed to look like. So now the daughter grows up and she, gets into a relationship, and if the person that she's with happens to be abusive, then what happens is a lot of times I see that the daughter, right, who's grown up in an abusive home, now in an abusive relationship, that seems normal to her. The whole idea of the abuse seems normal to her. And so sometimes, to kind of to add some support to that before I go on. So there was this one person, this girl who, well, woman, who tells her mom, the guy that I'm with, he's been abusive. My husband's abusive, all that sort of stuff, and physically, verbally abusive. And then the mom says to her, "Well, what have you done wrong? Right? What did you do wrong? Like, why? In other words, why is he? What have you done to make him abusive? Like, what are you doing or saying?" And then the mom asks her, "So what is it that you're doing or saying to make him mad? Like, what have you done to contribute to the fact that you are being abused?" Now, her mother asked her that. So that is a definite case of a situation where the mother was also somehow conditioned. Maybe her mom went through that, and this is a real cycle that's playing out here. Her mom probably went through that and she saw it at home, and it became a normalized behavior for her, as far as this is maybe how you're supposed to be treated. So what happens is sometimes you can end up in a situation where it's either you, I won't say anyone go looking for abuse, but when abuse shows up, for a lot of people who internalize, their reality is based on that normal, right? In terms of growing up in a home where abuse, physical or verbal, has been normalized, and so when it's not that they necessarily go looking for an abusive relationship, but if someone finds themselves in an abusive relationship who comes from a home where that type of behavior was normalized, then that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we go looking for the hurt, and a lot of times I've realized that a lot of people are more likely sometimes to stay in a relationship where they see it as becoming abusive. They're more likely to stay in that relationship because in some ways it's a reflection of their reality, and it was normal in the home where they grew up. Now, also on the side of men, what would happen sometimes is so the guy grows up again in the home where his dad is abusive to his mom, and and based on some of the things maybe his dad has even told him, and then also, you know, what's going on in his community with his friends and the type of people that he hangs around. Now, you can't blame completely. Let me just kind of clarify this before I move on. You can't blame completely the parents for the actions of the child, for what the child decides to do when they become an adult and they've grown up, and obviously everyone has their own mind. But we can't overlook the fact that, we are the first culture that we're exposed to, right? And it's culture where we learn how things operate, how things work, what to do, what not to do. Culture teaches us that, right? Different forms and different mediums that operate within culture, right? So the first culture that we're exposed to is in the home. That's where we first learn how to do certain things. And then, as an extension of the home, the neighborhood, right? If you're getting out and you're seeing what's in your neighborhood, you're driving by, you're seeing what's going on in your neighborhood, an extension of the home, and then the community and the culture, right? So the culture inside the home helps to shape and inform someone in terms of what it's like to be a man, or what it's like to be a woman, or what it's like to be. And so sometimes also a lot of these men are playing off of who are abusive also grew up in an abusive home because they learned from a young age this is how you handle that situation. Now, a certain situation in their life that they're not unhappy with in a relationship. Now, it could obviously be the complete opposite as well, to where someone grows up in a home where there was, abuse, whether it's excessive or whatever. Abuse is abuse, but they grow up in a home where abuse existed, and then what happens is they somehow have formalized their own thought process that this is not how I want to operate. This is not who I want to be as an individual. Again, there's a matter of choice. But what I'm saying is you can't overlook the impression that parents would have on children or guardians or whoever it may be that, played a role in someone growing from child to adulthood, and what behaviors became normalized within that process. And so, it's not surprising. Sometimes people struggle to understand why would someone stay in an abusive relationship, and a lot of times it's for different reasons. It's not just that the behavior was perhaps normalized in a previous relationship and they became used to that, or normalized in the home that they grew up in. So it could also be from a previous relationship where they were abused, and so they go looking for that type of stuff. And you've probably heard, if you haven't, yes, it does exist, where the people who believe that if their man doesn't hit them, then that they don't love them. I mean, I've heard stuff like that, right? It might be crazy. If my if I've heard where a woman would say, if my man doesn't hit me, then he doesn't love me, right? And so there are people who believe that, whatever school of thought that comes from, but there are people who absolutely believe that. A lot of times that goes back to what things were like, years and years ago, old school. But obviously, abuse still does exist, right? So when I say we go looking for the hurt and the pain that we used to live, is sometimes it's hard to understand and grasp why someone will gravitate to someone who behaves a certain way, move towards someone, date, marry someone who acts and behave a certain way. And as much as something can cause us pain sometimes people in a weird way find solace and comfort in that. And it's difficult for for some of us to be able to understand why that could be so. It's an interesting psychological approach that some people have, to where they gravitate towards things that you're wondering, well, why are you gravitating towards something that can possibly cause you hurt and pain? So look, you it's sad, but it's true. It's how it happens, and I mostly and also drugs, right? Sometimes you see it in with drugs as well, towards where someone will gravitate towards something that causes them hurt and pain, or that used to cause them pain. So somebody wants to give up drugs or alcohol or whatever the case is, and they're doing good for a while, and then they gravitate towards it again, and they start using it again, because you sometimes it's an attempt to hide and to deal with some type of pain or something that is going on. Sometimes when people use drugs, it's to bury some of the burdens that they're carrying, or the guilt, or the whatever it is that they're carrying. So they're using something that only temporarily takes them away from reality, right? So the drugs or the alcohol or the whatever temporarily takes the person away from reality. And when you're hooked on the stuff that makes you feel good in the moment, for how long the moment can last, when you're hooked on that stuff that makes you feel good in the moment, and that moment might be your high for 2-3 days, whatever the case is, but when you're hooked on that, what even though they know the repercussions of what is to come after they're hooked on that, what comes down the road after that, it is difficult for some people to be able to walk away from something that causes them pain. So, we go looking for the hurt that we used to live. And that happens in different ways in our lives. And one of the reasons is because until we've dealt with our demons, with the things that are really haunting us and holding us back, until we've, removed the scars, or remedied the scars and the pain and all that type of stuff, then what a lot of times I think what you see in life is people repeat the same mistakes, or they are unable, to move beyond a certain point in their life, because they've not been able to accept who they are, where they've been, and so it's very difficult to figure out where they want to go. And that's how sometimes life can play out. So let me know what you think about today's discussion. If you've experienced this personally, you know someone who's experienced it. All right, I think it's a really interesting concept, but it does exist. And in a lot of the coaching and stuff that I've done, I see it, and it's sad, but it's something that can affect any one of us, just depending on our mindset and and the way we look at things. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. Now remember, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Share and like the video. Those two things help the channel grow, so I'll appreciate it if you do that. And also, please go back and check out my other videos. Got a lot more content there for you to check out. Leave your comments in the description box below, and then also let me know if there are any videos that you would like for me to make, any topics you want me to talk about. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and until next time, peace.